You might not agree with me, but that's okay. Hey, what's up, Nerd fam? This is your boy Goshan. I want to welcome you to Into the Nerd, where if you like novels, anime, manga, and all tons of great stories, whether it's science, fiction, or horror, then you might like this channel. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like this video, of course, if you like it. So today, I want to talk about Lovecraft Country. Now, I know it ended a couple weeks ago, but I want to take some time to really develop some thoughts here because it's not really just a review of the series, but some of the overall reception, what I think it did well, and if there should even be a season 2, and what else people should really look forward to in terms of storytelling that has similar characters and maybe even of the same genre. So, first thing I want to say about Lovecraft Country is, and hopefully if you've seen it, then this won't be spoilers, but if you haven't, just letting you know these some spoilers. I will also be talking about the novel which it is adapted from, because that's where I had my knowledge of Lovecraft Country before the show came out. So yeah, let's get into that. First, I want to start off with what Lovecraft Country, the show, did very well. So as far as capturing the spirit of the novel in terms of it juxtaposing Jim Crow segregationalists, like the feelings of what was happening around that time, and also like submerging that within the genre of horror, it did a very good job of that in episode 1. Episode 1 did that extremely well, especially with that scene in the diner when they had to run away from the people who were coming after them. When the waiter called everyone saying, hey, I didn't serve them, whatever. And then they had to also run from the police in the sundown town. That was very good. And then obviously it ended off with like the Lovecraft creatures at the end and all that. Like, that was great. So I'll say 1 and even 2. I'll see even 2. 2 was very good for the novel as well. 1 and 2. Also the characters: Atticus, George, Montrose, Hippolyta, Dee, Letty, Ruby. All great characters. All acted very well. The actresses and actors did an amazing job on this. I had no problem with that, right? They were all nuanced. They all had different motivations. They all, you can tell were different people at one point. They all had some type of growth within the story due to things, whether it's familial conflict. They didn't all agree. They didn't all think the same. This is a very, very good thing to see in a story, especially with a whole bunch of characters of African descent, because usually people think all one way. And they usually like to say if someone's a certain color that they're all gonna think the same way, and they all didn't, right? Which I thought was very, very good. Now, there were a couple of things that I thought could have been done better. And I want to get into that because a lot of people, I guess, when they see this, they're like, yay, like, I love to see everything that's happening with these social messages and stuff like that. A lot of people love that about it. But that's actually part of the issue that I have. And it's not because they're social messages. It was how they decided to change certain things that the source material was doing, because the source material is already inside of the Jim Crow era. So racism is already inherent right there, like within arm's reach, the stuff they were gonna have to deal with. So I had no problem with them mentioning it. When I talk about storytelling, and I cringe when they try to like make any story that has to do with Black people about race, but because of the setting, it makes perfect sense. But there are some caveats to what they're doing, which I want to get into right now, about exactly which things they just injected into the story that didn't belong. So the first thing would be what happened in the haunted house. So in the in the source material, the house is haunted, but it's haunted by someone named Hiram Winthrop, who was actually at odds with Samuel Braithwaite. That's the guy that you saw in the end of episode 2, who was trying to use Atticus. You know, he's the father of Christina, all that. Like, they had a kind of contentious relationship, but they both were like dealing with the whole book of names thing. They were both dealing with magic. But it was haunted. Letty's house that her father bought her was actually haunted by him. Not a racist doctor who was experimenting on Black people. That wasn't a thing. Didn't happen. Emmett Till also, as a little boy, was not in said house, was not friends with Dee, who really was a character named Horace in the book. But still, that wasn't a thing. They also never name dropped on what's her name, Anarcha Westcott. They name dropped her, and a lot of people don't know who that is. But that was actually a slave in real life who was subjected to like 40 different operations with no anesthesia, against her will, by the father of modern day gynecology. And they name dropped her and said that she was one of the ghosts inside that house, which obviously doesn't make any sense because the doctor wasn't there for that. He wasn't that old. He wasn't that old. Even the one that was haunting in there, just he wasn't that old to do stuff like that. But it's like, why? Because in the actual adaptation, in the actual story, he actually is about to kill Letty, and Letty is right. Look, if you kill me, we're both gonna be ghosts, and then I'm gonna have to beat you up for all of eternity. And he's like, you know what? Maybe not. You might be right. And he actually becomes friends with her and protects her from these three dudes. Because remember, they were living in what was correct about what they did in the show was they're living in a neighborhood that's supposed to be segregated. They didn't want any black people living in the house. That's absolutely true. They did do that even in the story, and they tried to break in just like they did. So he literally captured them, saved her from them, and pretty much tortured them until the police came. That's what happened, right? And even his son is important because his son, they're looking for him to go get the Book of Names as well. They were looking for like a certain spell, and he winds up getting killed because he married a black woman, and obviously it wasn't a good thing at that time. That wasn't even in the show. But instead, where did they have to find this Book of Names? In Tulsa, when the race genocide was happening. Of course. It's like it was a checkbox of like African American pain. And it really wasn't necessary because you had to like reach for the Emmett Till thing. You had to name drop Anarcha, and then you have to literally go back in time for Tulsa. Whereas in the book, they didn't have to do anything convoluted. They just had to keep it within the era that it was in, which was already inherently racist, which there were already atrocities going on. They didn't have to reach for it. And I really, really enjoyed that about the source material, which is it also made the characters much more clever. It wasn't only about eliminating and like ripping the guts out of Samuel Braithwaite's or Titus Braithwaite's ghost. It was about just removing their power of control. That was it. They were like, these characters were very, very intelligent, and it wasn't only about brutalization, which was really what these pretty much the point of them putting these events in there, what it feels like for me watching it, is to get you as the audience prepared for the revenge. So it's like African-American torture porn mixed with revenge porn, because then it's like, oh, well, now they're going to get their comeuppance. Now we're going to rip their guts out. We're going to do these things. And then you're okay with it because you just got shown, this lady being set on fire. You got shown random black people getting shot and shot down by planes. So like, obviously you're gonna feel that way. But there's another show on HBO. Well, it wasn't on HBO, just it ended, which was Watchmen, which also uses the Tulsa incident, the race genocide, whatever you want to call people want to call it, riot, but no. But uses it as a way to show development of Sister Knight's grandfather, who happened to be hooded justice. Like they use it as part of his development. This wasn't. It was just there as just another incident. Like there's something else. It just wasn't necessary. For me, it wasn't necessary. You can disagree, and that's okay. And we can have a conversation about it. I just don't think that was necessary. Like there were a lot of clever ways to do it, and it kind of muddled the story for me. It did. It kind of did. Do I think there should be a season 2? No, because they kind of solved all the problems at the end. They say white people can't use magic, and only black people can. So I'm not sure if that means they're saying that all black people are going to use magic in a good way to help people. If that's what they're going to say. If that's what it is in this universe, then what issues are they going to have for season 2? Like, what's going to happen if they have no more access to music from this big, powerful spell? I think it's going to run itself into the ground if you don't follow that, right? If you don't understand that, what they've already put in place. So they should just let this begin and end here, but have other shows that are adapted that have great stories as well. Like I'll say a couple, like Bitterroot is great. It takes place in Renaissance Harlem. family of demon hunters. They gotta fight like a threat together because before they don't really get along with each other normally, but now they have to come together to eliminate a threat that's killing them. Philadelphia is another thing I'm reading, which is great. As a guy, he has to investigate his father's death, and it has vampires and other stuff involved in it. Great story. Brandon Massey has a really good novel called Dark Corner, which is about like the main character who's his father's like a famous novelist. His father disappears or dies, and he has to go to his hometown to figure out about him. And the antagonist is the son of a really powerful vampire, and they wind up crossing paths, and they're both trying to like live up to their father's legacies. It's really good. It's a really, really good story. I picked it up, Dark Corner by Brandon Massey. It's awesome. And that could be adapted. There's so many stories. All these characters, they're predominantly like African American characters. The authors and writers are also African American, but these stories are not important only because they're African American. It's who they are and not what they are. And these writers have done it. And these stories, they really prove it all. And I want to see more of that, right? Lovecraft is still a great series in terms of like, it's still entertaining and it does still enough well for people to watch and enjoy it. But I just don't like some of the low-hanging fruits that they did. And I saw what they were trying to do socially, and I didn't really dig that message because they kind of messed with the source material, and the source material had better things. But yes, that's just my opinion. If you don't agree, that's okay. Let me know in the comments if you agree or you're like, nah, I don't really agree, but let's have that conversation, all right? So keep on reading great stories, write your own stories, but don't forget to enter the nerd.